It's time to take a look at the highest grossing films in cinemas. This is the box office countdown. On the last place with $8.8 million, we find Steven Spielberg's The Post, with acting legends Meryl Streep and Tom Hanks.
Do you have the papers?
Not yet. The Pentagon Papers was a critical study in process of the history of the United States involvement in the Vietnam War.
Just the word itself, the Pentagon Papers, became this identifying pair of words that we weren't sure what they actually meant.
The owner of the paper, the publisher of the paper, Katharine Graham, had to decide if she was willing to jeopardize her family's legacy, the paper, thousands of jobs, if they were shut down.
On number 4, bringing in $9.5 million, is The Greatest Showman, inspired by the imagination of P.T. Barnum.
Showtime. The story is so full of heart, and it's about imagination, it's about passion and following your dreams and just fearless abandon in the end.
I remember walking in that first day and I was so overwhelmed because I couldn't believe that it was real. I started hiding. And Hugh came to find me and he goes, nah, 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 you don't get to hide. You don't get to hide, not after all this time. And he just gave me a big hug and we started crying. And I said, this is it, man. Well, you really did it. And he goes, we all did it. We all did it. Because it's his baby, and you know, to be a part of it is just, I can't even explain it.
This is me.
No one ever made a difference by being like everyone else.
And on number 3, entering the top 5 with $10.2 million, it's the exciting Western Hostiles, with Christian Bale and Rosamund Pike, among others.
Captain, you do know Chief Yellowhawk. The Army wants to be certain that the Chief gets home to Montana safely without incident.
I don't have any idea what he's done. He's a butcher.
And the two of you ought to get along just fine.
My character Blocker is as tough as they come and has been, knows the terrain so bloody well and has to deal with probably what an awful lot of military personnel have to deal with, which is that he has to take orders from an idiot just because he outranks him. He gets given this very uncomfortable mission to transport a man, a Yellowhawk, a Cheyenne chief, who is probably the man that Blocker hates more than anybody else.
The story is quite simple, and yet as you work on it, you just realize that there's so much in it. You know, the human landscape of it is vast. The journey of the soul is momentous and mighty. It's tremendously exciting and subtle.
You just gotta take your dues.
We both know it could just as easily be you sitting here in these chains.
On number 2, we find Jumanji, Welcome to the Jungle, where 4 teenagers are sucked into a magical video game.
It was right after I was offered the role in this movie, Jumanji. I was like, uh-oh, I better watch the original Jumanji. I've never seen it before, so it was literally only like a year ago. And it was great, and I loved it. I watched it with my boys, who loved it. Obviously, they're the age, they're 9 and 11. And Robin Williams is so funny. But he's also just so believable. You know, he's such a good actor, and you believe that he's been stuck in a jungle for 20 years, surviving on his wits and his energy. And it's just one of my favorite performances, is his performance in Jumanji. It's like, that's a role that he was born to play.
I'm obviously a huge fan of the original film, Jumanji. And, you know, I was thrilled when they asked me to be a part of this one. It's an incredible cast, and the script was great too. You know, there's a lot of surprises in the story. It's an action-packed comedy adventure. But in addition to that, I think that there's some real heart to it.
This week's number 1 is coming in straight to the first place, grossing $23.5 million. It's Maze Runner: The Death Cure.
They'll never stop, so we're gonna stop them.
The last city, Wicked's whole base of operations. It's the lion's den, hermano.
That's where we're going. When we first meet Thomas, you know, I mean, we're meeting a scared and fragile, vulnerable kid in a way. And now the Thomas that we see in the third film, you're seeing a very weathered person, you know, who's been through a lot, has felt everything, and still considers it his job to protect these people.
You know, there's a bit of a Scorched Trials feel to it as well, especially at the beginning. And then we're suddenly transported into what is essentially the lost city, the last place where you can kind of see an urban metropolis.
Hey, guys!
Thomas, you can save your friends, or you can save us all.